Welcome to Board Game Homies, where a group of friends play, review, and share about all things board games. Sitting around the table today are
Reed, Becky,
Gillian,
and I'm Angela. Today we'll be diving into Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising, aka the spice of life is taking two eerily similar board games to prom, but only going home with one of them. Which Dune shall it be? Spoiler, it's Paul Dennen. Paul Dennen just lives in my heart in a tiny home. But first, what games are bringing you joy?
you're getting very wild in your introduction.
and then we're just supposed to carry on following that. I'm like, no, I need to think about that.
New year, new AKAs, guys.
Oh, joy games. That's how you took me by surprise. I was like, oh. The game that's bringing me joy right now is one that we got at the end of 2024 that we've played a couple times to this point, and that is SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It's one that I was very excited about when it was revealed initially, although I was a little hesitant after Kutna, and we did like that game, but there were some issues we had, so I was a little hesitant about SETI. But then as people started getting SETI into their hands and playing it, people were raving about it, so it made me feel a lot better, and so I ended up purchasing it. We've played it a couple times, and I've really enjoyed my two plays, one at 2-player, one at 4-player, and I look forward to more plays. It's just a very satisfying game space for me. In the game, you are putting probes out into space, landing on planets, or orbiting them to get to find traces of life of these alien species. And once enough traces of life are found, you're going to reveal the alien species, which will add additional tracks that you can go up and also additional cards that you can collect into your hand. And it has one of my favorite components in really any game, that's multi-use cards. I love that in a game, and this does it very well.
Angela may not allow this to stay in the podcast, but we are actually trying to record as seriously as we can and not make a lot of silly mistakes and start laughing that we have to so hard that we have to start over, because we want to play SETI after this recording and we have a limited window of time today.
Yeah, that's how much I'm excited that I was like, man, why do we do this podcast? I just want to play SETI, and I want to see what 2 or 3 plays before we bring you that episode do, and if it holds up to that initial excitement that I have about it, or if I'm like, actually, this game is to this, that, or the other. So I'm excited in that vein of trying out a new game and getting a bunch of plays under to really tell you guys what we think about it.
In the hopes that we do end up recording on this, I will save more commentary, but just want to say I love a space theme, and I think that this does it really well.
It's not a space game in any sort of way. It's a medieval card game that is bringing me a bunch of joy. I'm currently obsessed with Castle Combo. It is also sitting downstairs to force Gillian and Reed to play it in person and not on BGA. Castle Combo is just a really quick tableau builder where you use symbols, and then based on those symbols, you'll score points. The most points in your tableau wins. And I'm playing so much of this, and I like how quick and fast. It's very solitaire, but it's just a delightful little tableau builder. Also, if you get the game in person, the person that you move up and down to determine what row you're in, he's just huge. He's like a giant piece, and I love moving him up and down the card rows. It's delightful. It brings me a lot of joy. It's super light and fun and quick.
Last Monday, Angela and I played that game during our lunchtime board game break, and it was a lot of fun. It fits into a small window of time, and it doesn't take up too much space on a table.
I'm excited to give Castle Combo a try because we had played Creature Caravan yesterday, and I think you were the one that compared it to Castle Combo, just in that it's a tableau builder. And so I'm excited to give it a shot. It fits in a smaller window, and yeah, it's easier to get to the table.
I don't particularly agree with that hot take. Yes, it is a tableau builder, but I definitely think they're different.
I'm saying Angela's the one that made that comparison. I didn't. But
I know, I'm
do
looking
like
at
tableau
Angela.
building.
I didn't realize you were supposed to be building a tableau in Creature Caravan.
Well, yeah, that's
Don't spoil the review of Creature Caravan. Spoiler, Reed did not put creatures in her caravan.
She had 4?
Well, 5? She had 2 for most of the game.
Okay. So my joy game is one that I actually just recently committed to buying, which is the Cities game by DeVere. And it is a game that I keep going to every time I go to a board game store, picking it up and holding it. And I finally was like, well, if my New Year's resolution is to not buy more games, I want to make sure that I have this game. And I've been watching videos and learning how to play it, and it looks really fun.
And you're so excited about the ships in the game, aren't you?
Okay, I did not realize that there were going to be some like boats and nautical things happening, so we might just not play with the Venice map or Sydney. I guess a lot of them have boats in it. Never mind.
Your commitment to the love of city planning is off the hook. Weird. And I kept picking this game up because you would pick this game up. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy it because it reads on the fence. It looks really great. I had heard some good things about it. DeVere is a wonderful publisher. You immediately said, I'm buying it. Don't you dare. And so I put the game back, which is good because Ashton reminded me the holidays are about other people, not me buying more games. And I'm super excited. This game will probably be my joy game once we play it a few times because it looks so wonderful and easy and fun.
I don't know anything about the game.
Yeah,
So it blindsided me that you guys were so into it and then eventually bought it.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Oh, well, what I love is that the rules book is like a tiny folded piece of paper that is just like a few things on each side. It is not very complex overhead. It is basically worker placement and that you get to determine which of 4 paths you go, but you do get to go to each path or each row in a turn. And so the competition is for the best slot that you're going to choose, like a city block, a building set, some sort of not souvenir. I don't want to say souvenir and turn off Angela from this, but like objective cards, I would say. And so worker placement, there's a little bit of the world wonders, like you build a city and you need to make sure that the parks are connected and that the waterways are connected and the buildings are connected. And so there's a lot that you can, it's not a polyomino, but it kind of feels like that, how you're building out the pieces together.
Reed loves a city planning game, guys. That's all you really need to know about it. And it's a lighter game from DeVere, so.
When are we going to play it?
Well, I was going to bring it today, which is a good thing I didn't because we have Castle Combo and SETI on the docket, hopefully. But yes, I will bring it soon.
Are you sure you didn't get it confused with another civil engineering game?
Brussels? Barrage? I think there's slightly different weights on this. I would definitely love a 6-minute teach of Barrage. Please.
Even though it's January, the game that's bringing me joy is Nana Christmas Edition. Reed got all 4 of us, including herself, this game for Christmas. And it is so adorable. I already can barely even stand Nana because it's so cute and this game is precious. And it's fun that it has the addition of the presents where we have to swap cards. Once you get a set of a certain number, everyone says Merry Christmas and you trade hands. And that just, it has been fun because we are laughing at each other.
I like this game a whole bunch. Obviously, it made our top, the base game made our top lists of 2024. But what I love even more is that Reed flooded the market with this game on accident by inquiring about the game with somebody she met on eBay. And then they put up more copies of it. And then those sold. And then more and more copies started proliferating because I think once something starts selling a bunch, then you can see it and track it on eBay. So more and more sellers started putting it up. And the game had been notoriously hard to find. Like we were looking for it for a really, really long time. And Reed just pulled a rabbit out of the hat, like magic that she is, and got us all copies. So I also love that you flooded the market with this Christmas game.
I know. So we all benefited. And then our 40 or 50 best friends just benefited that we know of.
I also love that you couldn't keep it a secret and you had to tell somebody, and that somebody was Becky.
Oh, I love gift giving so much, but I could not keep a secret. And so poor Becky had to deal with this being a secret. And then I just really wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, it was funny when we had our collective like present exchange going on. Angela was late getting off, and Reed was just pacing around the house like, when is Angela going to get here? I want to exchange presents.
She was like buzzing. You worked so hard to hold it in. I was really proud of you.
Also, I drank a lot of coffee that day.
A weird thing I like more about the base game is the box that it comes in is more well-formed. By that, I mean it's like a solid cardboard. It's not kind of like the folded cardboard in and itself, which allows it to fit different card sleeves that fit the cards better. And so I appreciate that for what it's worth. Very minor thing.
I did this morning send a note, an Instagram message to Happy Camper Games asking why they didn't release Trio with animals. I don't have an answer for that yet, but because we talk about Nana all the time, I want to acknowledge that it's hard to find and it's more expensive, and Trio has the same gameplay and it is available broadly and widely, but it's just not as cute. So if I do find out the answer to that, I will let you all know.
We'll be waiting with bated breath. Also, then that means Trio Christmas has to come out. Dune Imperium, released in 2020, plays 1 to 4 players. It's designed by Paul Dennen, and the art is by Clay Brooks, Brent Neinberg, Raul Ramos, and Nate Storm, and it's published by DireWolfDigital. Dune Imperium Uprising was released in 2023 and plays 1 to 6 players, and is by the same design team. It hosts the expansions Rise of Ix, released in 2022, Immortality, released in 2022, and the most recent 2025 release, Bloodlines. Gillian, how do we play Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising?
Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising share a lot of the same DNA. They're both games that use deck building and traditional worker placement to achieve dominance on Arrakis, or Dune, the desert planet. Each player takes on the role of a leader of one of the great houses vying for control of Arrakis. In this conflict, players will utilize cards to deploy agents, who will gather resources, enhance the player's standing with 4 political factions, and muster additional forces. A unique aspect of the deck building of Dune Imperium and Uprising entails not playing all cards on your turn. Instead, players will start each round with a hand of 5 cards, and on their turn they will play a card to deploy an agent to one of the worker placement spots on the board. Players will then alternate turns until everybody has played an agent or all of their agents, at which point, when it comes to their turn and they no longer have agents to play, they're going to use the cards remaining in their hand on their reveal turn. Each card has agent actions in the middle of the card that denotes where they can place a worker or agent, and also a potential immediate benefit that you gain by playing that card during an agent turn. The cards also have reveal turn actions or resources that you gain by revealing them during the reveal turn. This often consists of persuasion and or swords. Persuasion gathered during the reveal turn will allow players to acquire more cards. Swords, meanwhile, will help the player's troops fight for the current round's rewards as shown on the revealed conflict card in the center of the board. The game plays over the course of an indefinite number of rounds. The maximum number of rounds is 10, as denoted by the conflict cards that are ranked 1 through 3. 1 through 3 entails rewards that are potentially less enticing than those from the round or the level 3 conflict cards, which often consist of victory points and other high yield rewards. The game ends when a player gets to 10 victory points. You gain those victory points through various means. One of the easiest is to go up one of the 4 political factions tracks, each of which have a victory point associated with them by getting 2 influence in those factions. However, you can become an ally of those factions if you manage to collect their token at space 4 on the influence. That's a temporary victory point. If somebody goes above you in that faction, they will take that temporary victory point away from you. Whenever somebody gets to 10, the current round finishes, and people will reveal their intrigue cards, which may have endgame victory conditions or victory points that they can get, and whoever has the most victory points wins. So that's how Dune Imperium, the original game, plays. Uprising plays very similarly. It's still a hybrid worker placement and deck building game. The main changes, however, are the cards in the Imperium deck, so cards that you can take into your own personal deck is the deck building component. There is also adjustments made to the conflict cards and how you can gain victory points from those. And also spaces on the main board have been adjusted to accommodate the changes in the game. However, two of the most important changes, or the biggest changes, are the inclusion of sandworms, which took a lot of inspiration from the dreadnoughts in the Rise of Ix expansion for Dune Imperium. They're units that are 3 power. However, in this game, if they are in the fray and you win the conflict, you'll double the rewards you get. And the other big change is the inclusion of spies. And so spies will be deployed on spaces throughout, on observation posts, which are unique to the Uprising board. And that will allow you to put your agents on spaces that are already occupied by another agent. So, what did everybody think of Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising?
This game came out at a time in 2020 when Dune Imperium first hit the scene, that was at the same time as some other worker placement deck building games like Lost Ruins of Arnak, and then
Endless Winter
as well. And this one is the one that rose to the top. I never played Endless Winter, but just looking at this and Lost Ruins of Arnak, I think there is something magical about playing Dune Imperium that really captured me the first time we played it. I'm not very good at it, and I can certainly see Paul Denon's touch after having played Clank. I played Dune first, and then I played Clank, and I think you can really see that deck building element and purchasing of cards that's in Clank in Dune. And I don't know, there's just something about it, the worker placement and the deck building. It's kind of magical together in a way that you're like, why didn't somebody do this in this way before?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the marriage of two of my favorite mechanisms in games is like the deck building, worker placement. And I think it does it in a really satisfying way. And on top of that, there's also the conflict component of Dune Imperium and Uprising that adds yet another layer there where you're also vying for control over, it's kind of area control in a way, where you're trying to get the most units or most power in the space in order to win the conflict. And so all those together just blend really well. Becky and I played Endless Winter. We actually are trying to sell it. That is another one that blends worker placement and deck building, but not in a satisfying way like Dune Imperium. Meanwhile, you and I played Lost Ruins of Arnak. I only played it once, and it was different. I prefer Dune Imperium over that. But I would say Dune Imperium also holds a very special place in our hearts because it was the first big game that the four of us collectively played together back in 2023. That really kind of sparked board game homies in so many ways.
Thank you, Paul.
And Paul we trust.
Well, for the most part.
Yeah, wholeheartedly.
I fell in love with this game immediately. I don't think the board is particularly beautiful or stunning or I'm going to say even interesting. There's Arrakis, the desert planet, and it just takes up a big part of the board, and that's where the combat happens. And I don't think it's super interesting, but the board I think makes a ton of sense, and it feels simple enough that you're not getting lost in it, and everything is intentional. And so even though I don't gush about how this game looks, I think they did a really great job. And I don't want anyone to walk away with me thinking I don't think this game looks good. They did a great job. When you compare it to other games, it's not super fledged out in terms of here's what this part of the world looks like, and if you go to the factions it looks different and like this, and they all have their own touch, but the vibe is great.
I would describe the art as utilitarian. It prioritizes function over anything else, but it's still very aesthetically pleasing to my eye. But I appreciate that about it in a way. It kind of matches the theme of Dune, and so I appreciate it. But yeah, it's not flashy or flamboyant, but it gets the job done.
You summed that up very well for me. Thank you. That was perfect. I totally agree.
And I think it's the art on the cards is really nice. I appreciate the art there, thematically tied into. It looks a lot like the movie art as compared to maybe some other things and the most recent movie releases for sure. You're like, oh, that looks like that one dude that played in the movie.
One thing I really appreciate about that, though, is they didn't just take like screen captures of the people. They tried to like sketch them out, and the drawings look very similar to them, but they're not just screen captures.
Oh yeah, that makes it look way nicer. So I appreciate that, and the breakdown on the cards like are easy to read in the sense of the very bottom, if you don't use that card, you're going to gain its benefits. In the middle, if you play that card, here's where it can go, and here's the ability that activates. In the upper corner, here is the cost of said card. So I thought the cards even were laid out really nicely and intuitively to wanting to play them.
Agreeing with what Gillian said about this game having a special place because it was the first game that we played, the four of us. I really do like this game, and it was quite a stretch for me that day. I've played heavy games before, but it introduced a lot of the terminology and mechanics about, you know, the deck building, the worker placement, some of the other aspects of this, like the influence track. It definitely was a brain break for me at first, but then we played it, and I think I figured it out as we were nearing the end of a game, and we ended up playing it again relatively close in proximity, which was helpful in being able to figure out like, oh, okay, I didn't do that last game, I'm going to do it this game. And I ended up thinking about how much I absolutely loved this game.
Yeah, and we did kind of a thing that I normally wouldn't do, and that's we kind of forced the Rise of Ix expansion on Angela and Reed. We don't normally include expansions in the first play of games, but in my opinion, for base Dune Imperium, Rise of Ix is almost necessary, just in terms of creating more interesting worker placement spots and kind of the top portion of the board. The base game, just the board itself, those spaces are a little bland. And so the Rise of Ix, I thought, makes it a lot more interesting.
This is a game that's going to sound really ridiculous because it's been a part of pop culture for a really long time. But I just thought of this game as being like a space game and had no concept of the theme until I very recently just read the book, the first book. And now I'm like, oh, this game makes a lot more sense, how tight water is or what these different houses are doing. And I think it does that theme really well. And I'm glad I read the book before we had this conversation.
Yeah, it seemed like you had described it as everything kind of fell into place once you read the book. Like, oh, I get why this is this way.
And I don't think you need to have done it. Like, it can just be a space game with all these pieces. I do think it makes the game richer when you understand the mechanics. Like, I don't get Bene Gesserit. Right, then you read the book and you're like, oh, okay, I get the voice, I get Bene Gesserit's, I get all of that, and it almost helps a little bit when synergizing your deck because you're going down. Oh, I'm going to collect a lot of Bene Gesserit cards because they play off one another, or I'm going to get a lot of Fremen, and I'm going to try and go up the Fremen track and get a Fremen alliance really quickly. Again, not necessary, but I do appreciate that the theme doesn't feel slapped on. It feels very much integral to playing the game, but you also don't need to know everything about Dune, but you'll have a much richer experience, I think, if you understand the basics of Dune.
Since Gillian and I play a lot of two-player games, one of the things I was a little bit hesitant about when we first played Dune is that it has a bot player. When we played Seven Wonders, the original game, as two-player, like it has a dummy player in the middle of you that has a deck of cards and you pass cards to it randomly, I think. It's been so long I don't remember, but it was such an awful two-player experience. I was like, this is so dumb and this game should not be for two players. Which then they came out with Seven Wonders Duel, which is one of the best two-player games ever, in my opinion. But this game, like, the bot is so good. In the original game, it just like it takes up spaces that you want to go to. It makes the battle hard. Like you have to work hard to win the fight. You're never just going to like get it easily. And it was just such a great experience. Like I was so impressed by how well it was. I think I was like, this is maybe the best two-player game ever with a bot. It was so good.
Yeah, I agree. It was very good at 2 players as well. And then we played with 4 players and it was even better. We bought Dune Imperium and then Rise of X based on what everybody had said, that Rise of X elevates the game quite a bit. Then we ended up buying Dune Imperium Uprising because people mentioned it was largely kind of a revision. It was a 2.0 edition in so many ways. And we played Dune Imperium Uprising, and I personally liked that a lot more. And we played it at 2 players initially. The bot player in that game, House Hagel, was more complex, and I think that kind of deterred Becky a little bit. It was more complex in that they could collect resources. They could actually get their sword master without the other players intervening, and they could win conflicts as in the original game, but then there was also a variation. You actually get specific cards for the bot player for houses, and they could technically win the game. So they could collect victory points and they could win the game. Becky and I haven't played with the ones that actually allow them to win, but nevertheless, they were a lot more aggressive in Uprising in our experience, but overall just a little more overhead with them collecting resources. And I think that made it so Becky wasn't as excited.
They definitely still do a really great job, though. Like the last game we played, Gillian was so grumpy at the bot, which we use yellow because it's the most beautiful yellow.
The bot was affectionately named Robo Reed.
Yes, we call it Robo Reed. And so Gillian was cursing Robo Reed most of the game. I do really appreciate that it has a variety of bots you can play with. So like Gillian was saying, a lot of them can win the game. And I think that really provides like... to steal Angela's term, like a richer experience for even solo play, because you can actually play against a competitive game. And I would like to report back eventually with how that is, but for Gillian and me, like we're more interested in just like battling it out with each other, but it is important to have that bot still taking up spaces.
Since you brought up Uprising, I think it's a good segue into Uprising itself. I don't know how I feel, and I didn't know how I felt for a while about Uprising. And there's been this trend lately with some games, Dune Imperium, Everdell Farshore, where you have to question whether or not, is it a 2.0? Is it just some tweaks? Do you get one over the other one? And I was sitting with Uprising for a while, just really questioning it because of actually the sandworms. I don't know that I need the technology tiles that Rise of X brings, which means I didn't know if I really needed the sandworms. I do think after more plays, I could see the value of them, especially when somebody brings in a sandworm and now they can get, instead of getting 2 victory points, they could essentially get 4 victory points if they had a worm in the fight. And 4 victory points in a game like this is like crushing. Like if that person gets that, they are well on their way to winning the game, and usually comes out at the end, so it's probably the end game killer. So it made me need to think about how I entered battles in a different way that I didn't necessarily have to do with Uprising. Like I'm like, cool, you got a victory point, that sucks. But if somebody gets 4, that's a different story. So I appreciate the worms in Uprising, even if I don't think that I necessarily need them. I think it brings something unique and different to it.
I really dragged my feet about Uprising because of the worms. Like it gave me a lot of anxiety that you get double the rewards. And thankfully the ones where like you get 2 or the opportunity to get 2, you have to pay resources. So in order to get the 4, you have to have enough like double the resources, which is a lot. And usually maybe that person gets 3, but it just, that part added an extra layer of anxiety that it was like, what if I don't want to go worms, but you're going worms, now I have to go worms. But overall, like I think I do like the worms better than just like the base game.
And I would say from my perspective, the worms, as Angela kind of got into, was it affects your decisions in terms of joining or conflict or staying out. One thing I appreciate about Uprising and the worms is that when a worm enters the fray, it almost incentivizes you to try to thwart them. Even though it's 3 power unit, you might have a means to beat them and keep them from getting the double victory points or what have you. And on top of that, the other thing that affects your decision for entering combat are the objective cards that you start the game with. So at the beginning of the game, each player is dealt a card that has a tag on it, an objective card that has a tag. It could be the ornithopter, it could be the Chris knife, or the Madib, the little mouse. And every conflict card that comes up will have a tag associated with it. And if it matches the tag of one of the objectives you have, if you manage to win that conflict and match it with the tag you have for a pair, you'll flip both of those over and get an additional victory point. And so the worms plus the conflict card and the objectives all mix together to incentivize you to join the fray. And I like that a lot, because when Becky and I played Dune Imperium recently, we intentionally just stayed out of combat because we didn't think the rewards were enough. And so even if one of us was joining, it was like, man, I don't need to worry about it. They're only going to get 1 victory point. But if a worm enters that, they're going to get 2 victory points. It changes the calculus.
Yeah, that replay of Dune, because we've been playing Dune Imperium Uprising more often this year, and we just recently replayed Dune Imperium. There was a combat that came up that was just for Solari and nothing else. And I was like, I got other things to do. And in fact, I had a ship, and I was like, anyway, I'm glad it's come up here because I'm going to let my ship chill out. I'm going to add some forces, but I'm not going to actually put them in battle. There was really no incentive for me to do that, and I did other things. And that card itself made me really like Uprising because of that mechanic of trying to match symbols or seeing, oh, I see that Reed has a Muad'Dib card. She's going to go really hard after this battle so she can get that extra point. It was something interesting I also realized in playing Uprising or playing Dune Imperium is that the spaces felt more bland. And it's funny because when we first played that game, I was like, oh my God, brain exploded. But it is possible to make a game even better. And that was with the diversity of spaces you could now go to. I felt really limited in original Dune. Even though it felt fine getting resources and things, they just didn't do as interesting of things, I think, as they had before.
The spaces that they've changed in Uprising are a lot more appealing. The one that really comes to the forefront of my mind is the High Council space. Because in base Dune Imperium, you go there, you pay 5 solari, you take a seat on the High Council. It'll give you persuasion that you can use during the reveal turn to buy cards. And that's it. For the rest of the game, it's a dead space for you. It's not usable. You don't get any benefit for going there. But in Uprising, they added a little tag that's now says every time you go here after you've claimed a seat on the High Council, you get all these resources. And so it's a nice way to spend solari if you have an excess of it, because you'll get useful resources. In the game of the base Dune Imperium that Becky and I played recently, I had a ton of solari and not much to do with it. And so having that in Uprising would have been a nice, like, oh, I can go here and exchange it for these things. And so I do appreciate the little tweaks that they made to the various worker placement spaces in Uprising.
I don't know if I've used it well, and as Becky would say, build a better deck, Angela. But I've never won this game at all, which is...
No, you did. You just cheated and won.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. To clarify, I was using my asymmetric ability very wrong. I was like, this is great. This is very overpowered. But one thing I don't use very often and have not felt a synergy with, but I see all of you use it to your advantage, is the spies and the ability to go to a space that has been marked. I can see the benefit of doing so. I just haven't explored that strategy in any way. And also the card row in my plays of it just hasn't worked out that I got a spy, because some people at this table are spy card hoarders, and it's not me. So I look forward to exploring the mechanic that's added with spies, because you guys seem to do it really well.
It could be having a better understanding of the theme, or the fact that we have been playing these games more, but I feel like I understand the role of the spies and the memories and some of the spaces better now than I did before. And I think that we just need to keep playing so that we get better. Angela and I actually get to use spies a little bit more. I did use spies once and won, but I don't think I knew what was happening.
That's like a flex. I use spies and I won.
One of my favorite stories is that in the previous play we had, Reed was Lady Jessica, who turns into the Reverend Mother. And you were very confused doing it, and then you read the book, and you're like, oh, now I get it. Now I get why she's going for this water and why she turns into the Reverend Mother.
It does help.
Richer experience, Reed.
Completely. Also, one of the things that I love is that spice is a tiebreaker. And Becky and I, the first time we played, maybe it was the first or second time that we played Uprising, Becky and I were the only ones that were having worms. So we were continually like battling out with worms. And it came down to the final battle for the final victory points. And it did come down to the spice being the tiebreaker.
And now you know what spice is.
That's true.
Ain't no saffron.
I do remember that moment where I didn't want to, but I reminded you that the tiebreaker is spice because you were about to spend spice, which then I would have won because I had more spice. So you were able to do the right thing and win the game.
Well, and then to further clarify, it turns out that I miscounted. It turns out that I miscounted victory points, or that the worms doubled it. And so I would have won anyway. But it was good to know that for a moment, Becky could have won.
Oh, wow.
I always forget that part. And I think maybe my brain does it intentionally because I'm like, I'm such a great person. I threw myself under the bus so you could win.
Well, to be fair, it was like a half an hour later when I was like, oh, wait a second. I think I would have won that game anyway.
What I really appreciate with the spies, and also there are a lot more cards, like there are the spy cards, and then just in general, more cards that help you get into the different factions spaces. In the original Dune, like, I had trained myself to where if there was a card that had the ability to get into one of the faction spaces, like I had to buy that because it's so hard to get in there. And the spies really improved that. And the deck is just so much more interesting, not just including the spy cards, but I feel like there are a lot more cool abilities that you get to do. I was trying to think about it earlier, and just off the top of my head, I can't remember what they specifically are, but the vibes of that deck are so much better than Dune Imperium.
Yeah, they certainly add a lot more ways to trash cards in Uprising. There are very few ways to do that in Dune Imperium. Trash cards, that is, and remove them completely from your deck. So you end up usually with kind of a chunky deck that isn't very well tuned, but you have the opportunity to kind of build it a little bit more refined in Uprising, just because the more frequent trashing components that are on cards.
Yeah, I think it was probably Becky's constant reminder about building a better deck, but I did not have... I think I had one card that allowed me to go up the tracks versus going to the worker placement spots that were on the board. And that was a really big bummer at the end when I had like a dreadnought and a bunch of things and nowhere to get into battle. And I will do better the next time that we play.
That's one of the things I actually appreciate about this game is the ability for replayability, because there are so many, and maybe it's just because Gillian owns every single expansion. The asymmetric player starting pieces there's a lot of them. Like, I haven't played all of the characters yet, and I'm excited to mess them up and cheat on accident over and over again and try different things. I think there are just a lot of spaces and a lot of different cards you can collect that makes this game feel different every single time you play it, whether that's building, going up the faction tracks so that you gain victory points that way, or going heavy into battle, or just there's a lot of things to explore within the game that isn't a flash in the pants per se. It has some staying power and some real meat on the bones that, because it doesn't get to the table like every single week, still provides a lot of enjoyment for a really long time. because of all of those extras. And I'm excited to play the new Bloodlines expansion and see what it does, and Immortality, because I think it just had so much creative uniqueness to this game that's already filled with it.
So, do you need both games? Just one of them? All of them?
That's a really great question, Becky. And considering that you and Gillian have been pondering this for Looks at Watch an entire year, we have been waiting on bated breath to know what you're choosing and how you got there.
Clarification, I haven't been pondering. I already knew what I wanted.
You are a team.
So I made the claim, or I presented the claim to Becky that Dune Imperium Uprising is all you need. That I wanted to get rid of Dune Imperium and the Rise of X expansion. We have Immortality as well. We admittedly haven't played that. I'm not willing to get rid of that until I've tried it. So just getting rid of Dune Imperium and Rise of X, because the Dreadnoughts kind of fill that same space as the Worms in a way. And Becky stopped me then and there, and she's like, no.
Not just one time, multiple times.
Yeah.
You've been trying to get rid of this game for a while.
And we stated that it was going to be Dune December, and we were going to play both Dune Imperium and Uprising multiple times to see which one we wanted to keep. So we did manage to get Dune Imperium and Uprising on the table multiple times, one each at 2-player, and then we played a couple of 4-player games. And after that, Becky finally agreed that Uprising is better and is probably the preferred way to play. And so we are now planning to remove Dune Imperium and Rise of X from our collection.
Malcolm's
Becky, I know.
very upset
No, that
about
was
that.
Becky. Becky's upset about it.
Becky, how'd you get to this point?
I held out for a really long time because I did not like the worms. Like I said, they gave me a lot of anxiety. And I felt like the bot in the first game was perfection. Like, it was such a good experience. I think maybe part of it was just the plays that we had with that bot were just like so smooth and so good that I was like, oh, but it's the perfect one. And so I definitely had resistance to the newer bot that had a little more upkeep. And also the cards seemed a little more intense for what they were doing and like how much he was throwing into the battle, or she, because there are multiple characters you can pick for that. But after we played Uprising recently, like two or three times in the past few months, like once we started playing Dune Imperium, so the four of us recently, we had that game of it, and before we even started, I was looking at the green spaces especially, and I was like, ugh, ick. This is not good. And I thought about trying to keep it to myself, like, I'm not going to say anything, but I just couldn't handle it. And I was like, you guys, I think the other board is a lot better.
We started to see your resolve crumble.
Yes, and then this morning, Gillian and I wanted to play it one more time, 2-player, to make a decision, and we had Gillian set it up, and we were finishing kind of the being ready to start, and I looked at him and I was like, do you even want to play this? And so he had said like, well, let's play it one more time if we're going to get rid of it, just for old time's sakes. But Dune Imperium Uprising, it's better. The card deck is amazing. The spots are way more thoughtful. It's definitely a 2.0, and I think this is the only one you need on your shelf.
I will say one thing that made me hesitate initially is that the house cards in Dune Imperium and Rise of X are not something you can buy separately. So getting rid of that package means that we are only using the Uprising houses until we get Bloodlines. So that was something where I was a little hesitant to make the decision to completely get rid of it rather than just take those out of the box and put them in Uprising. But I think we just decided to say, nah, there's enough variety in Uprising, and then with Bloodlines coming in, there's going to be a lot more houses to choose from. So more content there.
Playing it the other day, it was really interesting that it did feel like a very different play. And I know that it has nuances because you're it's essentially the same game. It's essentially the same board and all of these things, but it felt really tight and tense because there weren't as many good spots or lucrative spots or spots that we were interested in, and it felt a little limiting. But in that, it was kind of interesting that it created this tighter game. So I can see why there would be challenges deciding between the two. I just, personally for me, I think that they're just too similar for me to consider them to be different games. And when I loop them in my brain, I'm just thinking about like, oh, it's Dune. I'm not differentiating between the two generally.
So what you're saying is you're buying Dune Imperium from me.
But Uprising is better.
Oh, but you just said you don't differentiate.
I know. But the 2.0 in this case feels like it's a more cohesive and improved experience.
That's the thing that it doesn't upset me. I could never be mad at Paul Dennen. But, you make a game and then you make tweaks and you make kind of a different version of that game. And I feel like with Clank, it's Clank in Space, Clank Catacombs. You technically could have all of those in your collection because they are different enough. And with Dune and Dune Uprising, I feel like they're different, but if you're going to get one, I would probably suggest Uprising. And so I don't know how I feel about that. Like when you purchase a board game, it costs money and it's an investment in time and energy to learn. And then to have a new one come back out just a few years later that maybe improves said game. I don't know. I just think that's hard on people with limited budgets to make that investment. And I feel that way about like Everdell and Everdell Farshore, how those two games play. And I get it. You make a game and then it's really loved and you see some ways to make it better. Wouldn't you want to make it better for people to play? It's just, I vacillate between how hard it is to have. It's already hard. There's so many board games. They're so expensive. And now you're like, this game that you love, we actually made better. So don't you want to buy that as well? And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. It just, I think, is good and bad.
Well, that reminds me of like the Brass Lancashire and Brass Birmingham, that it is a different game that was improved, and people have really strong feelings about that one.
Yeah, I think for Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising, it was more so they were only offset by 3 years, so it wasn't a very long time. And in the span of those 3 years, came out 2 expansions to Dune Imperium, and then Uprising was revealed, and people are very confused. Was it a 2.0? Was it just a new box? Does it replace the original? And it was a very confusing marketing thing. But I think they were motivated in a way by the second Dune movie coming out, because Uprising is very much centered around the conflict in the second movie, where, they have the sandworms that are attacking the civilization areas. And so there was that motivation. I don't remember exactly, but I think this started out as just an expansion to Dune Imperium, but then there were so many big changes that they elected to just make it its own standalone. But yeah, the changes are definitely improvements to the game. And it's tough when you make these expansions that improve the game in a way, and then you want to make another expansion, but then you're like, well, what if I just incorporate some components of those expansions to tweak the game so that it is just a base game that's more improved? I see the appeal there, and I do enjoy Uprising more as a result.
I do really appreciate that you can play the expansions with either game. And so, we were trying to decide if we should keep even just the expansion to have the characters. And I think it's not worth it, especially, like we've already said, the new one's coming out. But I do think that kind of helps that they're the two games that if you bought the expansion, at least you can still use it with the other one.
Yeah, I think it would be really egregious if you couldn't play the expansions backwards. And I think that's the same with Everdell. You can play the expansions on the newer version of the game because people invest time and money. And I guess you could say that with expansions. Some, Terraforming Mars, the dice game, are kind of blatant cash grabs, whereas some really make the games more robust and better. And I don't think you need a lot of expansions, but I do think that some make games better. And this was just, I can see what you're saying, Gillian, of like, hey, we have enough improvements, it warrants a new game. And if you're going to get one, I agree, like you should probably get Uprising if you've been on the fence about it.
I think it's a little bit confusing for the consumer as well. Like, I'll go to a board game store and they'll have Imperium, and then they'll have Imperium Uprising at a different store, and I don't know if it's backstock or if they're still selling both, but I could see that you would get one and then be confused that you didn't get the one that you wanted.
Yeah, and they're stuck in this weird space with any future expansions, because even Bloodlines, it's meant to be compatible with both games, but as a result, there are compromises made and components included in the game to make it compatible with both. Whereas if they just said Uprising is 2.0, every subsequent expansion is going to be for this only, they could cut down on the components needed and potentially the cost. And so it's just, they're stuck in this in between now, I feel like, because of the decision that they made. Because like Clank and Clake in Space, they had dedicated expansions that weren't backwards compatible with the other editions. And so I feel like it would have been a cleaner, boom, this is the new 2.0 or something like that.
And I think you can get Imperium or Imperium Uprising at similar costs. So I wonder if one of them will just naturally fade into the background, or if they stop publishing just because, I mean, if you're going to choose between the two, don't you want to get the cool ones that are painted? We didn't talk about the components of the sandworms, but you can paint them, and they do tend to look like tiny little peepees if you hold them at an angle. But that's neither here nor there. The components you get in that game, they're kind of similar price. So I could see how one of them kind of just fades into the background. If you're going to pay the same price, wouldn't you just get the newer one?
Well, I'm just going to ignore all of that PP talk. I don't even know where to go from there. But one thing that I am looking forward to is the team play. If we play with 6 players that Uprising allows to. And I don't know if the base game allows you to do that. I'm calling it the base game, the original game.
No, it only goes to 4 and it's not team play.
Yeah, I'm like, how do we find 2 new friends to join us and play 6-player, 3 and 3, 2 co-op? Because they got to be super rad to play that.
We were talking about it this morning, and I am a little nervous. We're going to put Dune Imperium on the used game shelf to sell. And I was like, ooh, is anyone going to buy this when they should just buy Uprising? Time will tell.
Good price.
Yeah, a good price will do it. I mean, I just bought, what is it?
Brussels?
Lands of Eldervale, which, because they had come out with the new version of that game hit the market relatively quickly, so it must have been loved and then upgraded. And I was like, ooh, I will swoop in on this at half price because that's great. So I think there are still people who will buy them off the used shelf and still get a lot of maybe that's like their toe dip in to see if they like the game.
I'm not going to, but I would be tempted, and I would think about it if I saw Dune on the used shelf.
Yeah, it's going to be on the used shelf. So.
I know, but I will probably not get to the game store before January 1st.
Oh, I'm just saying, it's right. It's downstairs. Like, Reed, you need to say you're not buying it, or else I'm just going to keep trying to sell it.
I am not buying it yet. No, I'm not buying it. I do like this game. I just want to say, I like this family of games. I don't even know. It's confusing to me what I like, but I like playing Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising, and I hope that it's a game that we get to play multiple times per year for a long time.
Thank you for listening to Board Game Homies. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and drop us a line on our Instagram page at Board Game Homies. See you next time.
Beautiful.
That was a great ending.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, now let's play SETI.
We did it!
Becky, you look like you could play Gentle Rain right now with your outfit, and I just want to take a picture of you.
What does that mean?
You look like the Gentle Rain box.
These are Becky shoes. These are the most Becky shoes.
What does that mean? You
Gentle Rain.
No, you're you're matching the Gentle Rain box right now.
With the green?
Yeah.
Like he just needs a cup of tea and like sit down at the table downstairs.
You
and
also
play
need to
Gentle
buy
Rain.
the much bigger Target version.
No, I
Which is
hate
half
that.
the price.
I hate it.
So you're recording the outro.
Yeah. I just want to find the one that doesn't.
But SETI,
Also,
Angela,
like that
SETI.
you like it doesn't relax me. It just stresses me out.
Yeah.
Some Gentle Rain.
Here you go.
It's Nana Christmas.
God damn it. Gosh darn it. Dang it.
Gillian's Correction Corner. Zing.